This is Valley View News, and these are today's headlines. Los Angeles police have arrested a suspect in the murder of rapper Nipsey Hussle a day after a vigil that left 19 people injured. And CSUN's opera program will make history this summer, presenting 2 operas that have never been done in the U.S.
Hello and welcome to Valley View News. I'm Scott Gierman.
And I'm Monica Campos.
Police have identified and arrested the main suspect in the Nipsey Hussle murder. Eric Holder was arrested earlier today in Bellflower after a member of the public tipped off the police. Police say the 29-year-old shot Hussle at the store he owned, the Marathon Clothing, on the corner of Slauson and Crenshaw in Hyde Park. The murder stunned the community, including LA Police Chief Michael Moore.
And then I saw the name Nipsey Hussle, and I looked at that again, and I looked at it again, and it was like, I could not believe it. It was like, it just drove the added violence even that much more severe.
There was speculation the shooting was gang-related. Hussle has ties to the Rolling 60s neighborhood Crips gang. But LA Mayor Eric Garcetti says the police now think Hussle's murder came out of a personal dispute.
To anybody out there, too, the absolute worst way to pay back Nipsey's loss, somebody we lost at the hands of violence, is with more violence.
Police say they think Holder and Hussle knew each other.
Valley View News reporter Jesus Partida has been covering the reaction to the murder here at CSUN.
Nipsey Hussle was a hip-hop artist who impacts the community more than people would think. Dr. Marquita Gamech explains Hussle's influence.
It was a tragedy, a life taken too soon. He was an important community engaged, socially conscious rap artist who was really dedicated to his community.
Nipsey Hussle did a lot for the community where he was raised. He did everything he could to provide jobs. He even opened a store there in the neighborhood. That's where he was shot on Sunday. CSUN professor Monica Turner says it was more than a loss for that community.
This hurts the most because some mother has lost her son, some child has lost a parent, and his girlfriend, who I believe is Lauren London, has lost perhaps the love of her life.
Lots of people showed up in Hyde Park to support the slain artist. They left hundreds of candles to his memory and for his community work. CSUN student Amada Kawi.
As far as his impact in hip-hop, his impact in Los Angeles to the community, it was bar none. It was amazing.
Nipsey Hussle was more than just an artist for his community. He tried to make things better, which to many that makes his murder even more ironic. In Northridge for Valley View News, I'm Jesus Partida.
Born Aramis Davidson Oskidum, rapper Nipsey Hussle has been a force in the Southern California rap scene for nearly 15 years. Hussle was a respected member of the music community and on his communal street, Slauson Avenue, which he repeatedly mentioned in his music. Before his music career took off, Hussle grew up in South Central Los Angeles. As an adult, Hussle was a Grammy-nominated rapper as well as an entrepreneur, community activist, and father of 2. He was set to have a meeting the day after his death with the Los Angeles Board of Commissioners and Police Chief Michael Moore. Hussle was hoping to put an end to gang violence. Hussle had also co-founded a science and tech-focused center for underprivileged youth in the area. He believed there needed to be a pipeline for inner-city kids to reach places like Silicon Valley. Nipsey Hussle died on March 31, 2019, at the age of 33. His real name, Aramis Oskidum, meant God will rise.
President Trump says he is 100% prepared to shut down the U.S.-Mexican border.
Mr. President, is it your intention, sir, to close the border this weekend? What would it take to not close the border?
Well, I haven't made that intention known, and I'm ready to close it if I have to close it.
Over the past 36 hours, White House economic advisors showed numbers to President Trump showing an economic decline, even if the border were shut down for just one day. The flow of goods, raw materials, and auto parts into the country are all in jeopardy. The Chamber of Commerce and the National Association of Manufacturers say businesses could lose more than $700 million a day. The auto industry is particularly concerned, warning some businesses could close within 1 week. The shutdown would also create food shortages by halting the $1.5 billion worth of goods crossing the border every day. Many companies are making contingency plans in case this shutdown becomes a reality.
The House Oversight Committee has voted to authorize a subpoena for former House official Carl Klein, and he will have to answer questions for overriding 25 recommendations to deny security clearances. Whistleblower Tricia Newbold told committee staff that Klein and Trump administrators overruled her in order to grant clearances. House Chairman Elijah Cummings says these allegations are concerning.
Recommendations have gone out to say they shouldn't have them. And so that should alarm each and every American.
2 of the 25 who were recommended for denials were senior advisor Jared Kushner and his wife, President Trump's daughter, Ivanka. The White House has denied any wrongdoing.
Presidential candidate Bernie Sanders has raised $18.2 million from over 500,000 individual donors since entering the race in February.
I know that we New Englanders are hardy souls, but frankly, we did not expect to see so many people here this morning. Thank you all very much.
Sanders brought in more than California Senator Kamala Harris and South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg. The average donation for Sanders was $20, and numbers have already exceeded those of his campaign in 2016. Young people and teachers were the most likely to donate to Sanders' campaign.
A second woman is now accusing former Vice President Joe Biden of inappropriate behavior. Amy Lapos of Connecticut was a former congressional aide to Biden and said he touched her and grabbed his nose on hers during a 2009 political fundraiser in Greenwich. This comes after Biden was accused of kissing and inappropriately touching Lucy Flores, a former Nevada legislator, back in 2014 while on a Democratic campaign stop. Biden issued a statement acknowledging that he had shown expressions of affection to people during his years on the campaign trail, but he never believed he acted inappropriately. Biden's advisors say the accusation would not prevent him from entering the 2020 campaign.
Hawaiian Democratic Senator Brian Schatz has introduced a constitutional amendment to abolish the Electoral College. His amendment proposes that the president and vice president be elected directly through the popular vote. Senator Schatz says the system is outdated and undemocratic. In 2016, President Trump won the Electoral College vote and the White House, but lost the popular vote to Hillary Clinton. Any changes in the Constitution need to be passed by 2/3 of both houses of Congress and be ratified by 3/4 of the states.
The flood control spillway at the Oroville Dam in Northern California is in use for the first time since it fell apart 2 years ago. Water Authority officials say the dam should not overflow again.
We've spent the last 2 years restoring full functionality of the spillway. We've had, industry experts designing and helping us construct.
The spillway initially crumbled because of the heavy rains that forced some of the 200,000 people to evacuate. The state spent over $1 billion repairing the spillway. Officials are now expecting higher water flows in Lake Oroville.
A store clerk was fired from a San Jose gas station after making racist remarks to a customer.
I was born here. Well, show me.
I was born here, raised here, and I never thought in a million years it was going to happen to me.
I was born here. I was born and raised here because I was born here. Prove it to me.
Grecia Moran was the target of the rant because she spoke Spanish to another employee. The offending clerk expressed support for Trump's border wall. She also demanded Moran show proof of U.S. citizenship. Moran says she never experienced anything like this in her life. The employee was fired the day of the racist confrontation. Store management had no comment.
Police in South Carolina arrested a suspect in the fake Uber murder of a college student. Samantha Josephson's body was found in a field 14 hours after she got into what she thought was her Uber. Police say she died from multiple blunt force injuries to the head and neck. Surveillance video showed Josephson getting into a black Chevy Impala. Police later arrested Nathaniel Daniel Rowand after seeing him driving a car that matched the description. They found Josephson's body, blood, and cell phone in the vehicle. Rowland faces murder charges and kidnapping charges.
All 4 victims have been identified in a homicide this morning in Mandan, North Dakota. RJR maintenance management owner Robert Fackler was one of those victims. The other 3 were also employees of RJR. Mandan Police Chief Jason Ziegler says no murder weapon has been recovered.
Reasons based upon the information that we have that the public safety is at peril.
He says police have no suspect and no motive yet.
One person is dead and 2 were seriously injured in another chemical plant fire in Texas. The fire started burning out of control today at the KMCO refinery near Houston. An employee said the plant was being evacuated due to a leak when the building exploded. The fire is sending a large plume of smoke into the air, and emergency officials are urging residents to stay indoors.
A Brooklyn man has been convicted in a New York courtroom for the murder of Karina Vetrano in August 2016.
Find the defendant guilty.
The courtroom erupted when Chanel Lewis's guilty verdict was handed down after the jury deliberated for only 5 hours. This was the second jury needed to actually reach a verdict, after the first jury was deadlocked due to questions and evidence and racial bias. Lewis is due back in court on April 17th for a sentencing on charges of first-degree murder and sexual abuse.
Now here's Valley View News reporter Luisa Rodriguez with a story on Latinas Rising.
CSUN has a huge Latinx community. Latinx is a gender-neutral term for some Latinos. The campus is a Hispanic-serving institute. It has many clubs and organizations, but some Latinx students can't seem to find a place where they fit in. Housing staffer Vanessa Galvan and Nancy Alonso are doing something about it.
Latinas were the highest admitted here at CSUN, so we were coming in big numbers. But when she looked at, after 4 or 5 years in the graduation rates of Latinas, we were the lowest graduating.
Galvan and her mentor, Nancy Alonso, saw several Latino residents feeling out of place and missing home. By building community through food and programs, Latinas' retention rate got better.
Latinas Rising became this programmatic community effort here in housing to try to provide a space for Latinas to grow, to foster, to create community, because we know that we can't do this alone.
She says that each program they create is meant to help Latina students. Galvan says each year, Latinas Rising continues to grow and shape the community. Recently, they received a $10,000 grant from the USU. Now, they can help more.
Other HSI campuses like Cal State LA are seeing the positive impact in starting a Latinas Rising group there. The growth and impact Latinas Rising has had in CSUN student housing is what they've hoped for. I'm Luisa Rodriguez in Cal State Northridge, reporting for Valley View News.
Here's Valley View's Eric Gabriel with entertainment news.
Thank you, Scott. From Donald Trump to Elizabeth Taylor, the Beverly Hills Hotel is known for its glitz, glamour, and bigger-than-life guest list. But a call to boycott the hotel owner has some Hollywood stars banding together to effect change. George Clooney has called for the boycott against all hotels owned by the Sultan of Brunei, Hassanal Bolkiah, who advocates stoning and whipping to death Brunei citizens who identify as LGBTQ. This is not the first time the Sultan enacted such laws. Back in 2014, Brunei introduced penal codes based on Islamic law covering matters such as marriage, murder, rape, and theft. Meryl Streep, Matt Damon, Brad Pitt, Elton John, and Queer Eye host Jonathan Van Ness and Bobby Burke have all spoken out against Brunei's policies as well. The trailer for Jim Jarmusch's horror comedy flick, The Dead Don't Die, was released. The all-star cast includes Bill Murray, Danny Glover, and Selena Gomez. The Dead Don't Die is about a small town where zombies try to fit in. They end up taking over the town.
Maybe the worst thing I've ever seen.
What was it, wild animals?
So what are you thinking? I'm thinking zombies.
The Dead Don't Die hits theaters on June 14th. An illness affecting the frontman of the Rolling Stones has forced the band to postpone a number of U.S. and Canadian shows. In a tweet, Mick Jagger announced to fans the group's plan to rescheduling touring, and he promised to work very hard to be back on stage. The 75-year-old reportedly requires heart surgery this week to replace a valve in his heart. He's been advised by doctors to take a break from the stage. A total of 17 dates have been postponed. Tour dates are expected to resume in July. Now here's Valley View News reporter Natalia Vivino with an update on CSUN's opera program.
CSUN's opera program is about to make history. The 2 operas they're performing this semester have never been performed in the United States. Students and faculty are hard at work preparing for opening night.
A few characters are speaking dialects, Napolitan, so it has been very difficult for us to translate it and to make it accurate and to make it accessible.
Both operas are by an Italian composer named Domenico Cimorosa. They premiered in Naples, Italy in the late 1700s. Both involve an extensive amount of Neapolitan dialect. The cast says, although it's been a challenge learning the material, the reward has been far greater.
It's exciting, definitely, to feel like you're part of something new and pushing the medium forward, you know? It feels really important.
Both operas are comedic. They involve music similar to the style of Mozart and other famous composers of the time period. The first opera is called L'Impresario in Angusti. The second is called Gli Sposi per Accidente. Director Maurice Godin says audiences are in for a treat.
Well, I think that they're very funny, first of all. I think that they're hysterical. I think the music is really beautiful. And it's a kind of music, well, it's a type of music that you're going to recognize.
The cast and crew say they're thrilled to be making opera history right here on campus. They'll be performing in the recital hall from April 4th to the 7th. In Northridge for Valley View News, I'm Natalia Vivino.
That is all your entertainment news. Back to Scott and Monica.
Coming up on Valley View News, elections are taking place in Europe and Asia this week.
And here at CSUN, students are also voting on whether to accept an increase in their healthcare fees.
This is the Valley View News, and these are today's headlines. Runners hit the streets to raise awareness for autism. Plus, CSUN's community is finding a way to live with bees. And thousands flood Hollywood for the Armenian genocide protest.
Hello and welcome to Valley View News. I'm Zach Ferber.
And I'm Scott Gierman. Breaking news from Charlotte, North Carolina. A suspect is in custody after killing 2 students and leaving 4 others injured at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. The school put out a tweet this afternoon telling students to secure themselves. The incident started about 5:45 this evening Eastern Time. The school remains on lockdown. We have breaking news in Venezuela. Opposition leader Juan Guaido has called for an uprising to overthrow the government.
Let's go to Luis Zuniga in the Digital Media Center for more.
Venezuela's opposition leader, Juan Guaido, says Operation Liberty has started. Guaido took to the streets with a small army of heavily armed troops today in Caracas. The move comes in an attempt to lead an uprising against President Nicolás Maduro. Guaido's Washington representative, Carlos Vecchio, says the move aims to restore democracy in Venezuela.
He has called the military institution to support the Venezuelan people on the streets and to restore our democracy in our country, and also to support the full implementation of the Constitution approved by the people in 1999. This is only the beginning.
Maduro, who many have labeled a dictator, says his military commanders have sworn their loyalty. Hundreds of demonstrators have taken to the streets of Caracas. Footage shows military vehicles appearing to run over several protesters, followed by protesters lighting a vehicle on fire. More than 50 people have been injured so far, many shot with rubber bullets. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric says the Secretary General is reaching out to both sides.
We are also, the United Nations is also reaching out to the parties. The Secretary General urges all sides to exercise maximum restraint, and he appeals to all stakeholders to avoid any violence and take immediate steps to restore calm.
Maduro's government has blocked Western media from broadcasting. President Trump tweeted he is monitoring the situation closely. We'll have more international news later. Now back to you in the studio.
An Army vet has been arrested on domestic terrorism charges. The FBI and the Los Angeles Police Department say Reseda resident Mark Steven Domingo planned a terrorist charge on the Santa Monica Pier and on a white supremacist rally. Officials say Domingo wanted to commit mass murder using an improvised explosive device with several hundred 3-inch nails to puncture human organs. U.S. Attorney for California's Central District, Nick Hanna, says he planned other attacks.
The complaint charges Mark Steven Domingo, a 26-year-old resident of Reseda, with a felony offense of providing and attempting to provide material support to terrorists.
Domingo is a recent convert to Islam.
Some bees have found a new home at CSUN. In the meantime, the campus has learned a little bit about how important the insects are. Valley View News reporter Leslie Estrada has the latest.
Swarms of bees invaded CSUN's campus a few days ago. The small visitors caused disruption and confusion among faculty and students.
A whole wasp's nest forming up on our balcony, and we requested for maintenance.
CSUN maintenance worker Ruben Lopez says his office responded for assistance as soon as they heard about the bees. The priority was to ensure the safety of faculty and students.
Most of the time, the way they are right there, they're fine. You know, as long as nobody does anything to disturb them, it should be fine.
But it's crucial to know how important bees are for the planet. Does killing bees hurt the Earth's ecosystem? IPBES, which researches bees, says the planet needs bees to pollinate plants. Pollination helps create crops for food production.
We should care for bees because they do take a huge part in our environment.
In the past few years, CSUN has worked to become more bee-friendly. Helping bees helps the environment.
We've been awarded the Campus Bee USA. We have our flag banner at Baramian Hall.
If bees were to be extinct, experts say human life would not last for more than 2 years. In Northridge, I am Leslie Estrada, Valley View News.
Each year, thousands of Angelenos march to commemorate the anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. Valley View News reporter Monica Villacorta attended this year's march and has this report.
Thousands marched through Hollywood to support the official recognition of the Armenian Genocide. Part of the rally took place in front of the Turkish consulate. The Armenian Genocide Committee and about 20 other organizations sponsored the March for Justice. April 24th marked the 104th anniversary.
It's a demand for recognition by the American government, by the Turkish government, and real measurable justice, reparations, and restoring lands and assets.
In 1915, 1.5 million Armenians were killed during Turkey's Ottoman Empire. The Turkish government disputes that. Marchers want countries to recognize the deaths as a genocide, most importantly, Turkey. In the U.S., 49 states recognize the genocide. President Trump released a statement honoring the deaths, but he didn't call it a genocide.
We use double standards. Certain cases are genocide, certain cases are not termed as genocide. They term by any other name but genocide because it serves their purposes.
Census figures show that more than 200,000 Armenians live in LA. It's the largest Armenian population outside of Armenia. Each year, Armenian Americans have called on the U.S. to formally recognize the genocide. Many of the marchers come each year just to remember family members who survived and died.
I'm here just to honor my grandfather, that I know he lost 4 kids back then, and they all was little kids.
Turkey says what happened in 1915 was part of the chaos of war, not a genocide. But more countries are recognizing it as a genocide, while others just call it an atrocity.
I do feel it's been gaining more momentum. I do feel more people in power, whether it's politicians or even celebrities, are using their voice for good and to raise awareness of the Armenian genocide.
LAUSD passed a resolution granting recognition to the Armenian genocide. 28 countries already recognize the genocide, although the U.S. is not one of them. Reporting from Los Angeles, this is Monica Villacorta.
Climate change and how to stop it. That's the subject under discussion all over the country, from the campaign trail to Congress to the United Nations. Valley View's Ethan Hansen is standing by live to tell us what's happening in Los Angeles to address the issue.
Mayor Garcetti has unveiled his own version of the Green New Deal to fight climate change here in Los Angeles. The plan calls for aggressive environmental goals. This includes a mandate that every building be emission-free by 2050, including homes and businesses.
Garcetti wants the city to operate with a zero-carbon electricity grid. He is also hoping his Green New Deal will create 400,000 jobs and plant 90,000 trees. CSUN students agree that fighting climate change is important.
Absolutely, it's very real, and I think that we need to pay more attention to it and that we need to do more to try to stop it from happening. I mean, it's happening really rapidly.
But critics say the plan isn't bold enough, and too many cars will continue to flood the streets of Los Angeles. From Northridge, I'm Ethan Hansen for Valley View News. Back to you, Scott.
LA health officials have confirmed the 6th case of measles a week after more than 700 people were quarantined at 2 Los Angeles universities. The 6th patient to contract measles was exposed to the disease while traveling internationally. Health officials found no connection between the 6th patient and the previous cases announced earlier this month. 27 people at UCLA and 385 at Cal State LA have been cleared. UCLA students don't seem too worried about catching the disease.
I don't feel unsafe on campus, but I think it's pretty random how it actually happened here at one of the safest places on the planet.
According to the CDC, 1 in 10 children die every year from the measles. Most of the people who have contracted the disease were not vaccinated.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer met with President Trump this morning to talk about an infrastructure plan. Both parties agreed to put $2 trillion towards rebuilding roads, bridges, water, and sewer systems, and Pelosi called the meeting very positive.
So this is a collaborative effort, and we hope it will be very bipartisan.
More meetings are expected in the next few months.
President Trump is suing 2 banks to keep them from releasing his financial records to Congress. New York Democrat Hakeem Jeffries says the lawsuit has no basis.
We are going to continue to proceed in a careful and deliberate fashion, consistent with our constitutional responsibility to do oversight.
Trump, his 3 oldest children, and his company sued to keep Deutsche Bank and Capital One from responding to congressional subpoenas in the investigation into possible money laundering and Trump's ties to Russia. The lawsuit says investigations amount to harassment and overreach.
President Trump is proposing a fee for people applying for asylum. This is the president's latest proposal to deal with thousands of Central American immigrants arriving at the southern border. Trump says he'll give officials 90 days to come up with a plan so asylum applications get a decision within 6 months.
Remember, every asylum seeker presents that claim, and then the claim of credible fear, the claim of seeking credible asylum, those all need to be processed, which is how we got to this point in the first place, because we have a couple of judges apparently in charge of immigration policy for an entire country, even though Congress can step in the breach, do their job, and actually make laws.
Arrests along the southern border have hit a 12-year high, with more than 100,000 arrests and denial of entry in March. At the moment, the fee would not exceed the cost of processing an application, but a dollar amount has not been given. LA is going to spend more money on the Olympics, and Sports Illustrated has a new face.
Here's Valley View's Monica Campos with entertainment news.
LA's budget for the Olympics is going way up. 2028 committee members say they want to spend nearly $7 billion on the games instead of $5.3 billion. The higher price tag takes into account inflation over the next decade. The committee's plan relies heavily on current facilities, arenas, and stadiums, and the new football stadium and entertainment center in Inglewood. This year's Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue will be unlike any other. It will be the first to feature a model dressed conservatively in a hijab and a burkini. The full coverage ensemble will be worn by a Somali-American Muslim woman, only exposing her hands, feet, and face. It's the first time a model will appear on the cover of a major American magazine wearing a hijab. Muggles, hold on tight, because the third Fantastic Beast will be hitting the big screens. Fantastic Beasts 3 is planned to be a part of a 5-film series, and the whimsical production is expected to begin in spring 2020. Expect to see a lot of Dumbledore in his quest to becoming headmaster of Hogwarts. Fantastic Beasts comes out November 12, 2020. An exhibit at LA's Peterson Automotive Museum has car enthusiasts revving their engines. Valley View's car guide Nathan Espinoza works for a media company with an association to the museum. He has the report on the exhibit.
LA's Peterson Automotive Museum has a new exhibit showing pedigree cars.
Collector Bruce Meyer has a massive stock of all kinds of cars. His cars at the Petersen today are part of his collection called Winning Numbers, the first, the fastest, the famous. Every car on display has a history of winning or being the first of its kind.
Bruce Meyer, who all the cars in this exhibit belong to Bruce, was one of the founding members of the Petersen. And Bruce just so happens to be kind of the Energizer Bunny for car enthusiasm.
Meyer's collection features actual race cars like this 1957 Ferrari Testarossa, the winningest dragster in history. Here's his 1979 Le Mans winning Porsche 937. VIP guests were impressed, to say the least.
It's history. You have to keep a historical record of what you do.
The Bizzarini, the Belly Tank, it's hard to pick. They're all really, really nice cars.
Whether you're an auto enthusiast or you just like cars a little bit, Bruce Meyer's collection here at the Petersen Automotive Museum has a little bit of everything for everyone. The exhibit runs till January 19, 2020. For Valley View News, I'm Nathan Espinosa.
That's all your entertainment news. Back to you guys.
More to come on Valley View News. Japan's emperor is doing something that hasn't happened in 200 years.
And 13 reasons why may be the cause of the suicide rate increase.